Yesterday, we learned about the first stage of entrepreneurship startups, which is ideation. Today, we are going to learn more about validation of startups and exit and growth. We have our speaker with us, Fani Pattamata. It's my great pleasure to introduce Fani Pattamata. Fani Pattamata is an accomplished business leader and entrepreneur by choice, with a passion for nurturing young entrepreneurs and next generation enterprises. He is focused on grooming leaders for robust growth and execution strategies. He is currently the Chief Operating Officer at Bontech Solutions Incorporated, a Chicago headquartered technology company with offices in Hyderabad, Bhubaneswar, Kochi, and Dubai. Till recently, he was the executive director at TIE Hyderabad, a chapter of TIE Global, Silicon Valley, USA based world's largest go to network for enterprises. Prior to that, he has held several significant positions like Regional Director at Randstad India, the National Business Head for Technology Vertical at EDECO India, and also the National Sales Head at BFSI, a Wipro-owned WEP Solutions. An entrepreneur himself, he is actively engaged with leading startup networks and building innovation ecosystems as an advisor and mentor to many startups and incubation CEOs. An alum of XLRI, pursued business management, also holds PG Diploma in Computer Alliances from University of Hyderabad, a graduate in Civil Engineering from Osmania University College, CBIT. I welcome you, sir, to the session of ADP, and it's an honor for us for you to be here. And I welcome all the participants, and I request you to mute your speakers and so that we can have a happy session. I wish you all a happy learning, and uh, over to you, sir.
Thank you, Chandana. Good morning, everyone. I will probably use some slides. Thanks to Ravi Garu, he's been very generous with the time given to me, close to a couple of hours actually. So, and we'll try and see that we don't get really bored. Let me open a window here, and Chandana, you have to tell me if you're seeing my screen coming up.
Sure, sir.
Because once I'm on, I'll be looking at my slides. Not much of.
Yes, we can see your slides, and Fani Garu.
Oh, great! Thank you, Andy. I hope the presentation is also in the presenter mode.
Yes, sir.
Yes, it is.
So first off, thank you, AHub, housed in Andhra University campus, and the university for bringing me to this session with an exciting group of over 60 people, as I saw, participating. And many congratulations to each and everyone in this room who is participating in the EDP on fostering startup innovation and entrepreneurship conducted jointly by AICTE and Andhra University. So my name is Fani Pattamata, and thanks Chandana for that kind words. I'm representing IFI Group, which is my passion to nurture startups and also incubators, EOs and ED cells, etc. So let us jump right into the topic, which was given to me. It is the startup stage 2, I guess, which is more to do with validation. So the placeholders for the subtopics that I might touch upon today, not in the same order, will be some of those and a few more. In fact, I will probably talk to some of our slides more to do with what people told us in terms of which is the right startup and which has a potential to grow. I'm sure all of us in the session 1 went through the definitions and the idea stage of a startup, and to keep this session a little light and more interactive, I will encourage you to use the chat window and keep pinging when I ask questions or whenever you have anything to say or probably you want to contribute. So, what's an entrepreneur? We'll just start with definitions, habits by the academic pedagogy. So, anyone who is an entrepreneur? I am actually trying to look at the chat window if there is anything coming up there. So you can shoot. So what's an entrepreneur as per you? Who finds business solutions to problems, taking risks? Anyone else want to give it a shot? Oh, by the way, there is no risk in putting your thoughts in the chat window. I hope Chandana will not really record and take all these in-call messages back. Who develops his own idea? Thanks. All great answers. So this is how I felt. I probably want to define who is an entrepreneur. So if I were an entrepreneur, I live by my passion. That's the most fundamental trait because of which everything else begins or starts, isn't it? And of course, I take risks. Entrepreneurs, like someone said in the answers also, they are willing to take risks and therefore they're entrepreneurial as the English meanings go. And then I create, right? I create solutions, I create products, I create market opportunities, I create wealth, I create new employment. So I create a lot of things as an entrepreneur, right? So there are many things that entrepreneur creates, and therefore I'm an entrepreneur. That's how I wish to really define. There are definitely academic definitions for an entrepreneur, but so I also see that there's a large population, close to or over 50% of the participants from the Telugu state. So I will take liberty in or maybe this is a Sanskrit word. So there are folks in India who keep saying entrepreneur is inspired by the Sanskrit word anta prerana, right? The inner drive and desire and passion, as they call it. So that's probably neatly put by someone I know, and that's probably who is an entrepreneur. Now, what is an ideal journey? Usually, this is the most followed or most traversed path for someone who finished an education or been an employee somewhere, learned parts of business, then turned to become a self-employee in the sense they may have gone consulting or instead of selling a company's value with which they're working in the past to selling their own self-worth to customers who are willing to pay. Then, of course, go and incorporate that company and become a business owner, which means they're declared to be in business from maturing from being a self-employed person to becoming a business owner. And once that wealth generation occurs and there are more and more investors investing in the business, or there are a few exits that happen for this business, turn to become an investor. And this has been a very standard route in which people traversed to become entrepreneurs. And this is most ideal. Amongst all the risks that are there, this is probably a less risky or a risk averse journey to become an entrepreneur, if you will. Now, what's a startup? I'll just take a definition from Steve Blank. It is a model or an organization formed which is constantly in search of repeatable and scalable business model, right? So that's, if that is happening, then probably the startup is in motion, right? If it's either the orders or the business is not repeating, or the business is not able to scale beyond a particular geography or beyond a particular set of customers, then I think it is still not deemed to be a startup, right? It's probably a one-off consulting gig, as they call it, right? So it is, if it is not repeatable, if it is not scalable business model, then should we call it a startup? That's the question. And this seems to be that company, right? So there is a scalable startup, the business model of which found its product and the market fitment. And then there are certain cash flows, they break even, they become profitable, the execution of the business model occurs, and then it is a full-fledged company in that sense. So there is definitely a lot of journey starting from just that idea to the solution, to the market acceptance, to the profitability, and to become a stable company. And it's a meandering, it's a very long journey. And that's also the reason why an entrepreneur must be willing to take risks and be able to uh, accept that punch in the face, as they call, right? So there multiple times they'll be punched in the face, and an entrepreneur must be willing to really take it, learn from it, and keep on progressing forward, right? So that's the passion and the grit that is required while execution, right? Okay. Now, what's business then? There is an entrepreneur, there is a startup, and there is definitely a company that is formed. But what is the essence of doing business? Right? It's about selling something or a service at a price or a charge, or there are exchange of goods and services for money, or bartered with other goods or services. And therefore, it's all about creating, delivering, and receiving that value from one unit or entity to another entity. And that's exactly what is a business. And there's no other business for business but to be in business, right? So business is in the business of doing business and nothing else. So there's no charity, there's no social service there. It is pure value generation and creation. I'll just try and take a couple of examples here. People from this part of the country will recognize this place, right? The Ram Ki Bandi, as we call it in Hyderabad. This Ram Ki Bandi, starts its uh, supply of sumptuous dosa late in the night. After midnight is when his business hours actually start, and caters to those people who are either getting down from these district or the state transport buses that keep coming into the city, uh, and his business actually is closed by around 5:36 a.m. in the morning, and Ramki Bandi operates for a certain segment of customers who are working in the nights or going on an early shift, or traveling into the city in Hyderabad uh, late night or early in the morning, and are looking for something to eat, because uh, that's the hour that they get to really have their meal, or one of the meals of the day. So or the night, if you will. So this Ramki Bandi's model is also a business. Now, how does Ram generate value for the business that he's doing? So Ram creates sumptuous dosa. Obviously, his ingredients are those batter, oil, the heat, and rest of the vegetables that he uses. That's a product, and it's delivered to the customers who are walking. Mostly every customer, and this is a very popular place. Ramki Bandi is the uh, go-to dukan when everything else closes in the city. Ramki Bandi is still serving dosa. That's how city knows this business unit, right? And the value is delivered by giving the customer the tasty, uh, ready to eat, and hot dosas at the hour that they require. That is late night. And customers, what are they doing? They finish. Uh, they take the product and they pay in cash. If you see the picture, somebody is paying up money, and that's the revenue or the value that Ram captures, which is uh, that's the business model Ram Ki Bandi. I just took this example so that we're sure of how this value is created, delivered, and customers are paying for it, and this value is captured by the company. Another example which is closer to being a startup, not like an MSME or a small unit like a Ramki Bandi. I mean, Ramki Bandi is not small by any means or standards in terms of revenues. He does very well and profitability also. Nevertheless, this is an online tailoring or a customized apparel online delivery model, right? So again, the customer chooses the apparel type, the customer chooses a fabric, styling, gives some measurements, makes a payment through a gateway online, and then this company is sending the entire details to a third party stitching unit, which is either outsourced, or if they have their own stitching units, go finish the job and then deliver the finished goods back to the customer. So if you see that cycle starting from 1 to 8 in that order, we'll realize how this entire online uh, apparel store is operating, right? So again, in this business, there is a value that the online store is creating, which is uh, made to measure or customized dress for the customer, and customer is actually paying their value in terms of the online transaction that they're doing via a payment gateway. So these are probably just two examples of defining how these companies create their business model and generate money, and that's a business that and there are many examples. I'm sure all of you in the room definitely know a lot more than these two, right? So but a lot of entrepreneurs with great ideas, but we seem to really struggle when it comes to the ratio of success, right? And there is a gap between which is that idea which is more successful and which is that idea which is not seeing its success because the business model fails at some point, right? And then it's not fit, or the market is not accepting it, or the solution itself is not able to generate a lot of customers, or even or probably the investors are not finding this business model attractive. It could be any of these reasons, or it is not repeatable, it is not scalable, or there's no excitement for either customers or the investors, and therefore business models fail. Entrepreneur may not fail, but business models keep failing all the time. normally it is felt and thought, and I also see majority of the participants here are probably faculty in colleges or universities, and who is also meeting a lot of these students with great ideas coming and pitching to them every day, right? So with all this huge buzz and uh, the market that is throwing news at us every day uh, of successful businesses and IPO listings or investments and funding, etc. There are many of our next generation youngsters or the youth wanting to really take the risk of jumping into entrepreneurial bandwagon or the startup uh, culture. So if it is so simple to convert an idea into business, why do businesses fail, right? And just be sure of identifying these words I use, the idea, startup, business, company, and which entrepreneur. And these are something that we just defined in the beginning. So business or a business model fails, but maybe, the idea may be good or whatever. There are different reasons why each of these failures occur. And what's required to build this successful startup and convert it into a great business and a company which is uh, exiting well, acquired or listing itself in public markets, etc. So one needs to question and ask ourselves, is it really a bright idea or what? Is it really there? Uh, and how to identify this game-changing idea, right? uh, because amongst so much of clutter, how do we really decide who is going to be the winner, who really gets those wings to fly more successfully as a startup? And rule number one, all of us know, it's depends on the quality, and quality of what we'll get there in a bit. It is always most usual and common that the startups, the owners, or any of these people who come to us with these bright ideas uh, work with a lot of assumptions and unknowns which they haven't covered, and it is the responsibility of the mentors, of the faculty in college, or of the people who are nurturing these young wannabe entrepreneurs or startup owners to reduce some of those unknowns and facilitate or provide the scope to for them to really validate those ideas uh, even before investing or scaling the product itself. But more often than not, that iterations and experiments that are needed are required. That I guess one needs to facilitate. To be able to do that, each one of us, who are meeting these young entrepreneurs or student entrepreneurs or even early stage idea owners, uh, one must ourselves think like entrepreneurs, right? It is not just that the idea owner is thinking like an entrepreneur or trying to think like an entrepreneur, but the person validating, facilitating, also must be able to think like an entrepreneur. And what is an entrepreneur? Obviously, who is willing to take risk, who is has passion, and who can create something unique or new or something that can generate employment or new wealth, right? And is that sufficient? It is not just thinking like an entrepreneur that is sufficient, but also one needs to think like an investor. So this, for many of us from academic background, will appreciate, is mostly like one needs to know the examiner's point of view while writing an exam, or when attempting a question paper in an exam. It is very important to know the examiner's point of view while they're asking that question, rather than what knowledge we have or how much of the topic that we studied and memorized, etc. Right? So that there's a big difference and a huge change it makes when the people attempting, the students or the someone attempting a question paper knows the investor, the examiner's point of view. Similarly, when we are evaluating startups or when we are evaluating ideas, we also need to know our investor's point of view. Will this really go through when an investor meets this founder or the owner, idea owner? Will the investor be excited enough? Will there be really excitement in this particular model that is being pitched, or this particular story or the idea that is being discussed? So one is think like an entrepreneur. Will this make money? Will this really have a repeatable business, or can it be scaled? Is one thought process, and the second part is, will there be an investor to really pitch in, or will I be, or will this founder be able to convince the investor to write a check, for this business model or for this idea? So these are the two principles that we use while evaluating every idea, and to check out whether this idea has ability to get its own wings and fly or not. And if there are more number of negatives not qualifying in any of these aspects, it's best to ask the idea owner to go back and refine on the idea, and go back and do a lot more research in the market to get their idea refined and iterate itself. So that's how it works. And I'm actually taking this whole thought process more towards the participants here, and how we are when we meet many of these startup owners, and what is our primary objective, and how do we really deal with those situations. Because I was also told one of the objectives is for faculty from different colleges also to get a peek on what it means to be a startup founder or a startup uh, stage that is validation. And of all the other, I'm not really come here to talk about investors' point of view today with you. There is, I think, another session on that. But the most critical and most important point of view for an investor is how strong is the team, right? Idea, business scalability, repeatability of business. All of these are one. But how strong is this team, and what is the quality of the people there? And usually, a business is a lot more successful if there are three such persona, right? In the line one, if you see a hustler, a hacker, and a visionary. I mean, if all these three, either three individuals or the persona being played by one or two individuals, and a single idea owner is always not very successful. They're rare occasions, so it's best to actually go back and ask this solopreneurs or solo idea owners to come back with a team, or at least convince a few people around them to risk, or to think that this idea can fly, right? That's the first test of getting themselves a co-founder, finding themselves a co-owner, and be able to balance the entire conversation in terms of who is that domain expert or the technology expert, the hacker, that I spoken about, or who is that person who is going to really face the market, face the customers, face the investors, like the hustler, who can really pick up phones and or go meet people without any prejudices. And then what is their real vision? Is the vision clear between the two of them, or they need someone else, like a mentor, like an advisor, like somebody who understands the nuances of the market, the future potential, etc., etc., and be able to balance that vision to them. So unless this hustler, hacker, visionary are part of this startup team, investors may not be interested. So I think that's step one of finding the right co-founders, getting these uh, proper mix of persona into the startup team itself. So if you take an analogy or an example, if there is a technology person who is a nerdy, deep tech, math, science, product kind of a person, and not really so well versed with the hustling of going out, meeting people, talking to folks, or even do a right pitch, in that articulate manner, and be able to convince the other person, then I think it's a serious requirement for this individual to find a hustler. Maybe from, if it is between students, go to a B school or an MBA college, convince somebody who he or she feels is the uh, right co-founder with a good alignment, right, with the purpose, and then bring them along with the hacker. So hacker, hustler, and then the college can always add an advisor, or one of the faculty members can play the visionaries role, at least in the initial stages till they get traction, right? So that gap identification, who is missing, so why that role is critical. I think this is the first co-founder mixture or co-founder uh, alignment that we need to really teach, tell them how to do, because that is the most important point of view of an investor whenever they're meeting a startup team. A solopreneur cannot add up a lot of things which the startup needs, and I will, as we go along, some of those you will find. And then identification of which phase or which stage is the startup, right? So it's I mean, it's a busy slide, don't go by reading or capturing everything there, but each of the phases are important, and at each and every stage there is an inflection point, and investors will look at validating any startup based on understanding which stage they are in, and therefore pledge their money, or bet their risk their funds accordingly. So first it is the founder's fitment, right? We spoke about it, and then the problem and the founder. So just because fintech is nice to do doesn't mean, if none of the co-founders or none of the team members understand anything about it, there's no point getting into it, right? So there has to be some deep expertise with which the team is willing to or being able to scale up to the needs of what the market requires, or just because uh, it's pandemic time, and therefore health tech startups, so many of them keep coming back with many ideas, but you never know, these are already solved, and probably there is a ready-made product which is selling at uh, 10% of their estimated cost of product. So these are usual problem and founder fitments. And then I think in the previous session, we have gone through the PS fit, that is problem and the solution fitment, where creating workable prototype, and getting this MVP ready, workable, I mean, a test or a POC done with maybe one or two test customers, and it works, and therefore some of those assumptions that are supposed to be examined in the problem solution fit is conducted and completed, right? Then it goes on and on till an exit, right? So I will focus today on this product market fit, but these are certain things that are very important, getting market validation, and also getting that minimum lovable product, or it is not just a viable product but also a lovable product. Customers love to use a product, right? Otherwise it's not useful. uh, those need to be validated, and we will figure out what is that process that one needs to follow before they get into. And scale and growth, I think, is probably part of the session 5 after the break. So that's in a single view, what are those various stages, right? So there are about 8 stages that I have tried keeping cracking it up for you, and see if this is useful. Right. So this is something that is already covered, I'm assuming. To build an MVP, one needs to have deep insights about the problem, uh, get their research in order, and have more samples of people telling why this problem is critical and important to be solved, and if they're willing to pay for it also, right? And then, of course, go and design, think a solution, craft an offer, or create a prototype, or something there, and then uh, trial, or POC it with one or two customers to see if it works, and it is solving those problems and issues which were figured out in the beginning of their journey, right? So that's a stage, and then once these are done, I mean, of course, yeah, as you see there's going to be multiple iterations. The founders of course keep going back to the drawing board or the bench multiple times to redo that problem and solution fitment, and then get their best MVP out. Now the next task is to really find those customers, right? It is not just those customers that they have discussed during their research, but also finding those who have their hair on fire. Like Michael Siebel once famously quoted, if your friend was standing next to you and their hair was on fire, that hair would be the only thing they really cared in this whole world, right? It wouldn't matter if they were hungry or suffered a bad breakup or even running late to a meeting, right? So the priority is to put the fire out, right? It's all about what is the most critical problem that somebody is wanting this owner to solve, this startup owner to solve, and that's very critical. If there is no such problem that they find, or they can't find customers whose hair is really on fire, then I don't think, I don't know, is it to create them? I don't think so. So many of the idea owners come with a problem statement in their own head, thinking that that's the most critical and important problem to be solved. But is it really a burning problem or not? Or are there customers who are willing to buy a solution or a product if it is available? So that's one question which we need to keep on repeatedly asking these owners, idea owners, till they get their solution fitment, right? So if there is high, you know, if a customer's hair is on fire, is it a brick or a hose? Hose pipe with water that we give.
ಈಗ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಂಡಿದ್ದಾರೆ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ ಬೆಟ್ರು ಸುಮ್ಮನೆ.
So I guess someone's microphone is on. So, to find the perfect product and a solution, and to douse that fire out, important to Chandana, is it possible for you to mute someone who's talking?
Yes, sir, it was muted.
Thank you. So that's I think the most critical. It's not a brick that is a solution for a customer whose hair is on fire. what will they do with it? Break their head or what? So it's important to really, get the hose, which is a perfect solution and not an imperfect solution for a particular problem. And what's the process followed? Obviously, there is a problem. We go and check out if the solution is working, iterate, redefine if it is not working, and then keep pivoting. And this cycle continues till we get the real solution which customer likes and is willing to pay for. So is there a method? So there is. Someone tried doing some research and told us that at least we need to have a dozen customers who say that they have a similar problem, and they will pay for they will pay if somebody solves it for them, right? And they need a solution for that. And of them, at least 5 of them are willing to really work with the idea owner to adopt the solution and then help refine that solution and scale, right? So, and out of many of those features that the solution may have, at least 5 of them are willing to really pay for it, right? So, this is a uh, simple metric using which even if there is an idea owner or a startup owner who is fully convinced that their problem and their solution is the best in the world, this works for you faculty in this room to really put a number to it and measure their progress uh, more scientifically than with a lot of assumptions that let me put it in front of some entrepreneur and the entrepreneur will decide. It is not required before even bringing those investors, bringing those mentors, bringing those advisors into the play. I think these few checks and balances and these few exercises are good enough to keep pushing these idea owners back and asking them to come back with their refined, iterated solution, which has at least some customers who are either paid for it or at least using their solution. So that's the reason why I put it here. But this is almost like a so getting their co-founder mix is step one. Getting a problem and a solution fit with a few iterations and a few customers is critical and important, so that there is that stickiness on both sides. Otherwise, we see that the founders can disintegrate and co-founders can disintegrate, or the idea owner themselves might lose interest in solving the problem after a while, right? So this is the key in terms of finding those right ones. And it's not about having 100 incubatees or 300 applicants, etc. It is having those 5 or 6 startups which are going through this rigor and really coming out to be able to generate those ideas of those products which are so-called MLPs, right? Those most lovable products. Now, here is another question. So, which of the 3 is most important? Is it the team, the product, or the market? You can use the chat to respond. Okay, Naveen says team. Any other tries? There are 3 options. All. Okay, Chandana. Product. Okay, Vaishali. 3 are interrelated. Okay, Kaushik. Okay, so most of us prefer the team to be most important factor. Few of us said product, and I think 1 or 2 of you said all. But The answer is actually the market. So if you remember in the definition of a company and a startup, the value that is created is for the customer, right, or the market to be able to take it. And if the startup has to be repeatable and scalable, then team and product are, of course, the ingredients of being that startup. But the most important and the most critical is the market, which actually pulls the product out of the startup. So if the market starts loving it or liking it, market won't wait to know whether the product is fully baked or the team is having the right real composition, all of those, right? So if the customer's hair is on fire and the hose is in your hand, the customer won't ask whether you have an experience or expertise of using the hose or sprinkling the water, or you have a team backing the entire process or not. Because the first thing is, please put the fire off and I will pay you for it. Right? So that's a difficult analogy, but it is the market that is the most critical and important factor for a startup's success. So the product, the price, the market, and the best combination of all these three is what the market wants. And PM Fit is all about that. And we said there is a founder's fitment that we do, the product and the startup and the product fitment we do, whether they're capable of building the product or not. When I say product, it could be a service, it could be anything, but I'm using product so that it is more efficient, or maybe it comes naturally to me. Then there is this product and a solution fit where the MVP or the first few customers create a product along with the startup to make it the most lovable product itself. And then this product or this solution must start scaling. Right. So we said market. Right. So that's a real opportunity, isn't it? So everything else is important as ingredient, but if there is no buyer, or if we can't expand our customer base, then there is no point having a startup which is used by 5 people and it dies down there itself. So that's what it means. Now, what's the next most important factor between team, idea, model, funding? Model isn't business model or anything else that you feel. So when we say market is important, yes, it is. So between team, idea, model, and funding, what else is important? Okay, team. Tejas said idea. I have 2 more. So 2 for idea, 2 for team. So anyone wants to break the myth? Funding. Okay. That's critical as per, I didn't know your name, sir, but yeah, funding is one answer I have. So anything else? In fact, it's a tricky question.
Timing.
Vaishali says timing. Yep. So that's as per Bill Gross. Good try there, Vaishali. I hope my other slides are not visible. Who's an investor and an author who wrote a book on investing, studied hundreds of startups which are successful and probably another 100 startups which are not so successful or which failed, and figured out timing is 42% of times more important for a startup's success. And between team, idea, model, and funding, it is as per him, timing, because there may be founders or there may be idea owners or the startup uh, entrepreneurs continuously tinkering with their product so much, trying to make the best of it, and becoming late to the market, and by then that particular product is already out and somebody else is doing business, right? So it is always seen in the market. So that product refinement takes such a long time because and by the way, in a one of the previous slides I've shown the phases of startup, right? Starting from founder fit till exit. It is very important for founders to keep pushing their own traction much faster with a lot of grit to accelerate that progress. Otherwise, they may be stuck in any of those phases and never scale beyond that, right? So, if there is a good product, if there are customers who are willing to pay, and if there's a solution which few customers have already used and found it workable or feasible, then I think it's the right time to take it to the market, and that's something that normally helps a PM fit happen much faster than to really wait for the product to really become the best of the ideal product and then keep on tinkering with the product. So product market fit happens, and how do we know it? We know it when the demand is much higher than for the startup to be able to cater to it. So it becomes so viral, or all those product uh, uh, customization and enhancement agenda gets on delayed because customers are really started to buy, and I'm sure most of you have seen this brand new audio chat room called Clubhouse, and Clubhouse actually did a lot of enhancements, but their first product was out into the market when people were all locked down, sitting at homes, doing nothing else, and the product really started having its market fit very quickly. And then of course they went and started adding new features, more enhancements, and changing a lot of other things to make it what it is today. And now they are actually waiting to find its scale. But otherwise, in the first few instances, if you remember, it was an iOS app initially. There was not even an Android version to it, right? And they just launched it into the market. And that's what I mean by saying timing. So unless it is timed correctly and then put in the market, uh, and then the scale happens, and then the rest of the development and tinkering can happen. So how do we know when PM fit is happening? Like I said, demand is skyrocketing, revenues are swelling, and of course, like I said, there's no time for product improvements and enhancements, and the startup needs talent and people all the time. I mean, they're like crazy hiring. So these are few of those indicators which tell that the market is really accepted your product, and your market product and a market fit happen. And there's also few indicators which tell us that is not happening, right? So customers don't see value. They ask for lower prices or something. They really end up negotiating a lot. Uh, Word of mouth is not spreading. People are not talking about it, right? For example, there is this Reliance Meet app that Jio announced and released very quickly, but there's no word of mouth. Nobody. I don't think people have switched their habits from Zoom to the Reliance Geo Meet app, right? So, I mean, it's a PM fit that never happened, right? And reviews, nobody really gets a great rave reviews on the press or social media. Selling takes a longer time to close deals. So that's when your PM fit is not happening. So just let me go back once. So if PM fit is happening, the demand is so huge, the revenues and uh, hiring needs are greatly increased, which we are not. The startup is in the catch-up phase, and even product improvements is not happening at the same roadmap that they have. Right, they are actually missing deadlines on product roadmap, but rest everything seems to be happening, and that's what is being business in, being in business. And if it is not happening, we need to pay for reviews, press releases. There's nobody talking about my product. Uh, my customers are negotiating, haggling, and not closing deals, etc. So that's a clear definition, a difference, and indicator of whether PM fit happen, not happen. So what's the unique thing about PM fit? So like I said, launch. Once the product is launched in the market, there's going to be a lot of feedback, there's going to be a lot of noise, and one needs to listen to that noise and feedback uh, empathetically, not saying that I am right and the customer who's giving you feedback is wrong, kind of attitude should not be there, but you know listen to what the market is telling us, uh, and then if it is required, loop it back, put it get your product enhanced, corrected, and keep pivoting. So that's the cycle which is all about product market fit mantra. So it's this cycle of launch, listen, loop, launch, listen, loop, and that just continues multiple times till the customer is successful, and therefore the entrepreneur, the startup is successful. So if the customer is not happy, the customer is not happy. I mean, that's very important feedback that one needs to listen. So what's that only thing that matters? PM fit. So we said timing is critical. One needs to launch, listen, and pivot. Uh, I don't know whether anybody really gave a feedback to Reliance Geo Meet, but there was no change. Now I don't even see that app anywhere in my uh, Play Store. Uh, and then there is this market which defines the success of the startup, and one needs to be careful, listening deeply and intently with empathy, and make those changes and keep communicating on a continuous and regular basis to your customers. And of course, it requires to have a sound business plan as well, right? So that's when uh, it, a product which found its market fit moves into its next stage of scaling. So first, the product founders fitment, get the right founders mix, co-founder mix, problem and solution fitment, where the uh, solution is validated by a few customers who either paid or agreed to pay, or at least bought one feature from us, and then the PM fit by way of putting into the market and launch, listen, loop, pivot cycles, and those validations and experiments. Uh, then it is the growth, which is optimizing and getting more revenues, growing and hacking the growth by way of expanding into different markets, different geographies, or different territories, etc. So that's the next stage of what it is. Okay, so one more question here. So what's market in one word? Anyone can answer. Use your chat window. So what's market? Platform, it pulls the product, okay. Business platform. So remember we said somebody's hair is on fire, the customer's hair is on fire. Market is a pain, someone who's actually having the pain, right? And that's the customer, that's the market. And the important thing is to identify who is or who which are those segment of customers who are pained because they lack something in the existing solution or they lack something which is not convenient or useful for them. So what's product then? If market is pain, what's the product? Solution for the pain, requirement, customer demand. We can say pain reliever. Yep. Chandra seems to be taking some shots. Yes, it is the painkiller, right? So if market is pain, then product is its painkiller. And the reason why I've used these terms is because we can really remember them for a long time. It could be any other definition. All the answers are right. Every answer is a great answer. But this is a good way of remembering, what's a market and pain product. So what's team? In 4 words. Right? So that's an acronym for team, and this is something that a startup team definitely requires, uh, and they have to, or the startup must be looking at whether this is happening, not happening, to be stable as a company. So I don't know how we are doing on time.
Sir, if your session is completed, maybe we can have QA from the participants.
Yeah, we can have a QA. That's what I'm saying. So probably we can switch on our videos. Maybe Chandra can also take a group screenshot.
Sure, sir.
So that's something that I thought I will speak about with respect to the product and the market fit, which is the stage 2 of uh, the company, which is the startup, which is growing, right, and getting validation in the market done. So anything that I missed, or you feel there's something that you want to know further, you can open your. I think they can everybody unmute Chandana if at all they want to talk.
Yes, sir. Everyone can unmute.
Okay, so you can actually access your mic to ask a question. There are close to 99 people in the room. Can't be so silent. Either everybody understood everything so well, or I have not explained something correctly.
Hello, sir. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, sir.
I'm Dr. Ravichandran from Coimbatore.
Oh yeah, good to meet you, sir.
Coimbatore. Yeah, I lead head entrepreneurship development cell. Though your explanation from the startup, from the marketing and everything is a lot. You learn lot of things from you. Thank you for your wonderful. Okay, sir. Thank you. Thank you.
So these are a very practical ways of looking at what is the product market fit. It may be anything else but solving a customer problem, and not once, twice, but multiple times. And if that is not happening, then the startup is still having a certain time to really be able to meet either an investor or somebody else. But these are those checks and balances in my mind, which can be used to uh, figure out whether they're making progress, they're not making progress, what is lacking, and why they can go back to their drawing boards and rework. Because I mean, in many of the incubators or the student entrepreneurs that we meet, there's so much of assumptions and lack of information or unvalidated assumptions that are normally pitched, which can be avoided, uh, and therefore the investors on the other side are more convinced, uh, and probably if Ravi Garu is on the call, he can also add to it, because this is something that he must have done with a few startups which he would have mentored or advised over those years when he was in he was interacting with these startups, isn't it? So any questions there? Because the next session we I think have a break of 20 minutes. Uh,
Yes, sir.
right
Uh,
now it is.
this session actually will be till 11:30, sir. From 11:30 to 11:45, we have a break, sir.
I know that's what I said at the beginning, Chandana. You guys are
Yes, sir.
very generous with the time that you have allotted. Uh, so there are a few things that we will do. I will try and go back to this definitions which I avoided, and as a recap once again. Hi, Chandana.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sorry, I had a power cut and the generator started late. So what we
Okay.
will do is probably we'll take the break right away
Sure,
and
sir.
come back at 11:15, right?
It's 11:45, sir.
Yeah, we'll come back at 11:15,
Okay, sir.
and then maybe by 12:30, 1 o'clock, we can conclude the second session. Is that okay? Chandana, are you there?
Sir, okay, sir. Her connection is lost. Okay, sir.
Yeah. So we'll come back at 11:15 once again into this room.
Okay, sir. Sure.
Keep it running. You can, and then we'll start at 11:15.
Okay, sir. By 11:15, we will start new session.
We'll start the session 5.
Okay, sir.
But that's when I will also do a recap of this session once again.
Okay, sir. Sure, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. So as sir said, we'll be taking a break till 11:15 and we can be back by 11:15. Thank you.
Welcome back.
Welcome back. Hi, sir. Just let us wait for 3 more minutes, sir. We can start by 11:20.
Oh yeah. There's a 50% drop as of now.
Yeah.
I see. Abhimanyu raised hand.
Sir, I have a query. Sometimes a word is used. Sir, am I audible? Sir, I have a query. Sometimes a word is used. Sir, am I audible?
Yeah, Abhimanyu, you are, but let me try and mute myself. Abhimanyu, you are, but let me try and mute. Abhimanyu, go ahead.
Abhimanyu, you can post your question now. Sir, he is asking how can you differentiate the innovation in the service and the process of innovation, service innovation and process innovation. Sorry, sir. Differentiating of service innovation and process innovation.
So innovation is a very large subject. Now, process innovation is that incremental change that we're doing to simplify a existing process through which the customers or the people following the process will find these improvisations much useful and more simple to follow, and that's what is process innovation. And this is the customer defined process which somebody is trying to innovate to simplify, right? Now, service innovation is within the same company. As a company, I'm delivering certain service to my customers, and I try and simplify my own service delivery, or I innovate, try and reduce or increase, uh, reduce efforts or increase convenience or whatever by way of improvising my own service delivery, and therefore that's an innovation which is more internal. So uh, process innovation is extrapreneurial or entrepreneurial. Service innovation is intrapreneurial, which is within the company. So if one of us is working, or when you're working with a company, and there are existing services that the company delivers, and if you are asked to innovate a little bit to simplify those existing services which are offered to the customers, you are an entrepreneur working on it to get some out of the box innovation or innovative solution. But if I were a company which was asked by an external, I was a company which is asked by a customer to look into their current process of how they are solving or manufacturing something, and then asked me to solve it by innovating or improvising their existing process, then it is entrepreneurial or extrapreneurial that I'm working to solve somebody else's process innovation. So does it explain? Right. So that's more on innovation, but we'll come back to pricing. Uh, so pricing is based on so the most lowest on pricing models is the cost based pricing. If as a company I spend X amount on the ingredients that I procure, Y for probably creating that product or developing that solution, etc., and Z for probably putting into the market and all the other expenses that I incur. Uh, then X plus Y plus Z and a delta A of my profit that I wanted to add, and then sell or price my solution or the product in that manner. That is what it costed me plus my profits or margins. Whether 8%, 10%, 12%, or 25%. Now that's cost-based pricing, which is the weakest price model, because once there is a negotiation or customers beat the price down, uh, there's no way we can reduce the quality of that X, Y, what is going into that X, Y, or Z. So therefore, uh, companies usually get into bleeding at some point because their pricing strategy is cost-based. Now, there's another pricing model which is competition-based pricing. So for the same product or a service or a solution, competition is charging, say, X value, X price, and I, as a company, is adding some 2 more features to it, or 1 or 6 features more to it, and therefore I do a X plus delta X and put my product into the market. Now, whether it will work out, doesn't work out in terms of the company making margins or profits is based on how sorted are my supply chains, the procurement, and my cost to serve, because the competition may have priced it uh, based on their own internal costing or whichever, and I may not have the same suppliers, the same uh, people, or the same overheads at my end, which might make my price competitive in the market, but at the same time not very uh, sound if I am not able to meet that profit margins. So investors may not really love it. Now, the third model, and which is the best one, and that's also probably why it's on the top, uh, is the customer value based pricing. Now, what do I mean by value based pricing? It's called actually profit pricing for profits. And what is it? It's a full course in IIM Ahmedabad. I think it's a 2-day module, or 3-day module. But nevertheless, customer value based pricing is based on the company's assessment of what is the value I'm providing my customer because of that convenience or that experience or that servitization that I'm doing, that peace of mind or whatever that I'm bringing. How much is the customer willing to pay for it? So it means if customer spends say 100 rupees, and because of my product, the value, the perceived value is that 100 rupees. Now, I can charge anywhere between 95 to 100 and customer will still buy it. Or I can charge anywhere between 80 to 85 and customer would jump out of the seat to chair to buy it, right? It may have costed me only 50 rupees or 60 rupees, doesn't matter. Or if it may have costed me only 10 rupees, who cares? So it is all based on the value that customer is perceiving by using that particular product. Case in example, the iPhone, right? The Apple products. They the most expensive phones, almost. Uh, and why? Because it's based on value that the customer is perceiving, or the love for the product the customer is buying for, and it is nothing to do with what is their actual cost of manufacturing, or plus their cost of shipping and plus their cost of this overheads of people, etc. So there's no such calculation in it. It is pure play value that customer is perceiving, and therefore it is priced. And how does Apple know whether customers are perceiving that value or not? Based on the sale that they do, right? If they're selling less, there's a and I'm sure if some of you understand how Apple always launches its new products. They launch sometime in the month of September. They look for the product market fit and the pricing fit uh, for a couple of months, and then there is this Thanksgiving and Black Friday that comes in. That's when they discount the product for the festive season, and that discount goes on all the way up to New Year. So November and December they actually reap the entire rest of the market by adjusting their pricing points. So that's how the customers buy. There are some early adopters of those 5 or 7% of them who buy as soon as the product is launched. Then there are those 13, 14, or even more who wait for the first reviews to come in and buy in November and December. And then that's how their marketing strategy works. So moving on this pricing strategy. So this is a grid which talks about price and quality on these two axes. And on the x-axis, you will see quality from low to high, and on the y-axis, you see pricing from high to low. So in quadrant one, you normally see a product which is termed as an economic product, and on quadrant 3, you will see this premium priced product. Right? So and the rest of these other two are either someone is interested in penetrating into the market, though they have a better quality, they price it low just to penetrate into the market, and some of these other products, which whether the quality is good or bad, they price it high, so that they only want those customers, and then skim those top end of those customer segment. So this is how another framework to price a product. Uh, some examples. All of us know MailChimp. That is one of these communication tools and emailing marketing tool, which is the only company, or most recent company, which is bootstrapped to become a unicorn. They never had to raise money from the market, and this is a company which always used a pricing model which is focused on revenue growth all the time, right? Then there is this other utility we always use in internal communication, or group communication in companies and in teams, and their pricing model is based on that it's a good quality product, but they really want to penetrate into the market and compete with the likes of Salesforce or somebody else, so that uh, and then they're funded well, and hence they use a pricing model which gets them the market share quickly, and because their investors are interested in that. Yeah, like I said, Apple uses the high price quality buyers all the time, and that's kind of work for Apple as a company. I know that some of us would have seen this meme that even a iPhone cleaning cloth, they kind of sell it at 2,000 rupees, right? A simple duster cloth. So anyway, so that's something on pricing strategy. So like I said, we spoke about the products versus services and the pricing, because these are the two aspects that keep bothering startups during their growth phase. Because once I got a good set of customers who are buying from me, and I have received repeat customers and who are loving my product or services, that's a time when companies usually get into this sales maximization and also expansion of geographies, etc. That's a time we normally use. We require that's a stage in which founders are stuck, trying to make a decision on how do I price my product. If it's a new geography, should I use penetration as my choice, or skimming as a choice? How do I really uh, communicate to the market based on my pricing, or do I really do I really price based on cost plus model? So what's going to be my pricing strategy? So all of these are the kind of aspects that we look and take measured decisions and informed decisions by these advisors, or if we already have investors by then, they kind of coaching and guiding us through this journey. Now, once we have these ready, and we, as a startup founder, knows that these are the most important aspects, and therefore also gets certain experiments that they do in the market, and they're sorted in terms of what is the market giving them as a feedback, either is their sales growing, is the revenues growing, to what's happening with the product, etc. And that's when the startup is ready to face those set of investors or those set of people who will take this company to next exit level discussions, for which the most important framework that we keep using, and this can be used at any stage and any point of driving or doing the startup. Either at the idea stage also something can do this, or even at this late stage also someone can use this, because for example, at an idea stage there will be a lot of these answers to these topics such as problem, solution, cost structure, metrics, and unique value proposition itself is a guesswork. The company is still not clear about what is their value proposition, but they keep writing a few lines there. And if you see, the left hand side is mostly to do with the product, and the right hand side is mostly to do with my market or my customers. So what's the unfair advantage I have over others with my product? Which are those channels that I'm using to uh, push my product into the market, and which are those customer segments that I wish to target, and what are those revenue streams that I anticipate based on a certain pricing model that I have. So this product and market understanding of being able to fill this model canvas, or some of them call it lean canvas with some different definitions there, comes only when this knowledge about company, the customers, and their own market comes into the startup founders. Initially, the PMC or the lean canvas is usually uh, focused, or probably a lot of detail is written on the product side, and very limited and less information to do with the market. But over experience and over the startup moving from founder fit stage to crossing the product market fit and going into the exit and expand, growth and scale mode, is when the founders are able to write uh, or be able to properly tell a story on the right hand side of this model canvas, which is related to their market, right? I'll try and see if we can take some of these one line definitions and what we need to really incorporate in this model canvas. And believe you me, such a canvas is the most useful tool for any startup, or for any incubator, or for any ED cell, or startup innovation ecosystem, to be able to let founders think critically and fill up those boxes, because most often than not, this is a framework which many of the founders have the habit of filling in the last minute, or just the night before meeting their investors. And some of the lines will look to be an ideal state, but not the actual state of or stage of the company. So oftentimes, the founders' dreams are will creep into these lines, but not the actual facts and truths about the company. So it is important for someone who's guiding them, advising them, or even the founders who are true to themselves or honest to themselves, be able to fill these details, uh, keeping their company and their stage of the company in mind, and make it more factual and real, right? So as you see, UVP is the most difficult box, which is at the center. Uh, that one clear, compelling message that states why this company is different and their products are worth buying, right? So that is something that we find many of these founders struggling with, because that also stems from a lack of that time or efforts that founders give to be able to listen to their customers quite often. So founders don't go back to their because of the operations and because of the interrupts that each one of them have on the ground that they're solving on a daily basis. Founders tend to move away from their market, which is not a good idea. And even if at a personal level, also someone comes and asks me, what is that one value you bring to the person that you're meeting, the other person funny, and I will definitely struggle to get a right and a compelling message, to write a compelling clear message of myself. So why does it happen? Because if I'm not listening to the people on the other side and uh, not really feeling or sensing what's the reason why somebody's either talking to me or giving me business or meeting me or listening to me speak, etc., I would know what's my individual work, my individual capability, or what is that value that I'm providing uh, to the customer, to the person I'm meeting on the other side. So each one of these lines, each one of these definitions are critical to be able to establish the company's stage of scale and growth, and that's the only thing that helps them tell the right story amongst everything else that people keep talking that they're doing, right? Of course, the business plan has some of these key components which the team has to prepare and keep ready, and with each meeting that they do with either investors or advisors, these details are revised, and they keep going through iterations. But that is a good sign, because remember, a company at this stage, which is selling to a lot of customers, hiring a lot of people, meeting many investors, talking to different segments and strata, or even doing a lot of PR exercise of giving interviews, etc., uh, is constantly telling the narrative or the story of that startup, what it does, and why only this startup can do it better, and what is that unique differentiator, uh, and therefore how the customers, if they are customers they're talking to, must pay and keep continue to buy, or if it is investors that they're talking, must invest and wait for those returns and investor those profits, or if it is an employee or a potential hire, why the person should join the company and be a part of the journey of associating with the most successful startup on earth. And if they are talking to press, obviously they need to give this forward looking statements to attract the audience, to whom with whom they are engaging, and so it's each and if they are partners, if they are vendors, if they are suppliers, so each and every stakeholder that a founder or these co-founders are talking to, they need to they will be continuously narrating the story, and that story should be clear. It has to be consistent, and it's constantly revised based on new information and new successes that the company is seeing, right? So one example I'll take so that it explains, how people build these details, starting from the value proposition, right? So McDonald's supplies food of a constant quality that is served quickly and consistently across the globe. I mean, just tell me, if there is anything else that missed out which McDonald's does other than just this one line, right? So that's the crisp value prop that the startup must really get, and be able to deliver consistently. And who are those segments? Of course, those people that are eating from McDonald's, and these are typically the channels, either they're franchised or own restaurants, and they also have online and preferred customer relationships. And yeah, so McDonald's generates revenue from their outlets and stores, and their resources are obviously all these people and the stakeholders, and they're in the business of selling food and beverages and marketing. Their partners and what goes into their cost. So that's quite a simple one line uh, per uh, product and the market uh, the components of McDonald's business model. Yes, the most important thing is value prop. Uh, Mostly, it is all about how well and how differently this company or this startup or this product or this solution is solving customer problems, and that's it. It's not probably I'm the Uber of diagnostic services in Hyderabad's Chikadpalli area. That doesn't sound a great value proposition to talk. Right. So, and who are those customers? Who are the current ones? Who are the important ones? And what is it that we sell, or what? How is it that we're creating value? Then, what does it cost? What are the various things that go into making what value we are proposing, and to those segments of customers, and because of which, because of selling these services or products, what is it that we are making? Uh, how much is my profit, and which are all the sources through which revenue is generated? Is it generated only through selling the product, or there some professional services that we do on top of the product, or are there some partner sales that happen? Is there some merchandise that I am selling along with my product, or is there maybe there's experience centers? So is it a franchisee revenue that I'm collecting from my partner? So what is it that we are doing? Is it commissions? Is it service fee? Is it purchase of product? So what are all those various streams, and how much of these are generating revenue from? Then those sources, partners, channels, activities, resources, customers. So in a nutshell, if there are any of those boxes or any of these parameters in a business model that the startup is still not knowing, that means they're still not figured out, and therefore they're still not ready to face probably the kind of investors that they aspire or they intend to find. And if they are not able to think through these various components and they're not in control of what is going on, maybe it's high time for the founders to really recalibrate or sit and go through their business details to be able to know these answers. And that's the time when the founders actually really jump if their business model canvas is ready and their the business model, those 10 components are converted into say a powerful slide deck which they can talk to investors, is when they really land into talking to the real investors. So there are a series of or there are a few people who invest in a business in previous stages, but those are not the so-called venture capitalists or so-called investors who are equity are coming for to share equity, which happen at this stage of scale and growth. Mostly, all of us know, right? So initially, there are a few product development grants that might happen. There are certain project grants or the corporate grants that somebody may receive to build a product. There may be initial friends, family, or fools, right? The three F's who will raise the first level of funding. It could be equity, it could be debt, it could be just a hand loan, whatever. And there could be a few angels who may just come in and put in some money for in exchange to equity or in exchange to other forms of returns. So all of those will happen till such time the company is either getting its founder fitment happening or getting its product solution fitment happening or a product market fit happening or even different other validations that are happening within the company. This stage occurs only when the company is really mature and looking to expand, grow, and get more investment so that they want to scale much faster. Right. So that's the stage at which one needs to really jump into that unknown territory of looking at a promising land somewhere. So that's when we normally call somebody is doing a pitch or an investor pitch or a investor demo day or the multiple names to it. But it is mostly about telling a story and persuading somebody to write a check uh, in exchange to something else. And that's a fact. Uh, whatever it takes to really prepare and know our answers well and fill those business model canvas and convert it into a good UI and a neat looking, nice looking pitch deck, etc. Uh, it is first few minutes uh, of listening to the pitch is when the investor is actually making a decision, right? And rest of it is only validating their judgment or their decision, and that's the reason why they may ask questions, etc. Right? So they ask a lot of questions because they're trying to validate their own decision, either to invest or, I mean, if they're not interested in investment, and they don't ask a lot of questions and waste everybody's time. But the founder must be willing to answer these questions and should be willing to learn from each one of these questions. In fact, the investor is also in parallel trying to assess the attitude of the founders, how much of willingness to learn, pivot, or take advice from these investors, because uh, they may be having a great business acumen, but if the founder is not willing to listen or willing to learn, or if that willingness is missing, that attitude is not so great, investors also back out. Yes, it's not a PPT, but it's mostly the story and the narrative and the confidence and the team and those co-founders. Uh, Investors are definitely not investing in a balance sheet. They're investing in people, the team, uh, the confidence to achieve that business plan, or their story and the narrative, which gives them the confidence that the founders know what they are talking, and they have that expertise and wherewithal to be able to. And lastly, what is that hook, and how easy it is, and with what clarity investor is able to get what is being told, right? So that's about it, what is expected. But this whole investor presentation, and what are the investors looking for, I think is for another session, not a part of what I'm going to take up. But that's the stage for exits and investment discussion. So questions, I'll take a pause and take any questions that you may have. I know that's a lot of detail in probably a few hours, but none of it is something that people in this meeting do not know about. But I'm trying to put it in a specific flow and a pattern, so that we can recognize why it is uh, that way. Open to questions. Is there anything in the chat? Somebody already thank you. I hope they are still in the call.
That was for the clarification he has given, sir.
Oh, okay. So should I poke Abhimanyu? Any further questions?
Yes, sir. Sir, I have a query. Like many times, the entrepreneur feels that the product he or she has designed is the very good product. He does not take criticism at a very in a healthier way. So, what are your insights about this thing? How should the entrepreneur should react?
So whose problem is that?
Uh, in the some sessions when they are talking to investors or the uh, angel investors, they say these are two bill changes which need to be inculcated in the product. I'm talking about the students. Students sometimes come up with their own ideas, but they do not take the criticism in a very healthy manner. So, what are your insights about this thing?
So whose problem is that?
So, I was interacting with some of the students, so I know what is their tendency to they seek the advice from the mentors.
No, I wish to repeat my question for the third time. Whose problem is that? Is it the mentors or the investors or the
No,
customers' problem?
entrepreneur.
Entrepreneur's problem, right? So
Yes, sir.
who has to solve that problem?
So my query is, there is a particular entrepreneur. He feels like he's of the opinion that the product he or she has designed, it's the best fit for the market. From the industry side, industry people have a better knowledge how the product actually functions in the market. They give their opinions based upon their expertise. Now the entrepreneur is feeling it is taking hard on himself to make the changes. So I want your opinion, what you think in this particular situation. What are your takes on this?
So that's, I think, part of what I just told, that trainability, coachability is a factor which is important for a founder, right? So along with that ability to dream, that passion to do something that they've chosen, that willingness to take risk, and that their uh, expertise and experience, or the capability to create what they're wanting to create. For a founder to progress further, uh, and for the product to really take off in the market, and the product to really take shape as a company, the first important requirement is that willingness to listen to the customer feedback, and ability to pivot or iterate. Right, that's the first thing we spoke in the first fourth session 4. The second thing, when we're talking, with the interface with their investors or advisors, is that willingness to be coached or willingness to be trained, because not any individual knows everything, right? So I don't know a lot of things that I don't know, and so long as I'm acknowledging, accepting, and I'm willing to be coached, I'll be more successful based on having known newer and newer things on a daily basis. Now, if that willingness to be coached, willingness to be trained is absent, uh, that's a problem of the founder. There's nothing that investors or advisors can do about it. And if the founders are not willing to listen to their customers and their market feedback, that's a problem of the company or the startup business itself, because it will never scale, right? So having said these things, that openness is more relevant than that probably feeling of the entitlement, right? Just because someone is taking risk or somebody is creating something new doesn't mean that individual feels entitled uh, of everything else in life. So that's where I wish to stop, Abhimanyu. It is the problem of the founder for not having that willingness or ability to listen, or be trained or coached, and not the market's problem or the investors or the advisors' problem in that sense.
Okay, thank you, sir, for answering.
Because we can change anything in a person, and not the attitude. Isn't it?
Yes, sir, true.
So there's nothing anybody can do about it. So it's only for the individual to be able to learn. It might take a little late for them, so be it. Yes, sir, Dr. Ravichandran.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, sir.
Very nice presentation. I have one doubt. You are taking one slide in the pricing strategy. You have the 4 quadrant in x-axis in quality and y-axis in price. I have one doubt. The premium pricing. So normally premium pricing means high quality, high price. So it is. It is the. Is it best model?
Why not? There are a few products which are sold at a very high price, and gives a premium quality.
Yeah, actually, this business also constant. So you will get the revenue and the sale price and everything is constant.
No, because they're able to sell that the higher cost. the company is able to deliver that quality consistently again and again.
Okay, sir. Okay.
And see, it's like this, sir. If the company has to be a unicorn, right? So, which means $1 billion in a year.
Okay, sir. Okay.
Right. So I can sell $1 product to billion customers.
Okay, sir. Okay.
Or I can sell, $100 product to so many customers. Or I can sell, $1 million product to only few customers.
Okay, sir. Already you took an example. You took an example in Apple phone. Huh? Okay, sir. Okay, thank you for your value percentage. Thank you, sir.
And for those customers who are not willing to pay that price, they'll never buy that product. And companies know that they are not their customers.
Okay, sir. Okay.
Right. So that's the space in which they wish to operate, and they're good at it.
Okay, sir. Sir. Thank you.
That's the choice, isn't it?
Thank you, sir.
Yes, Naveen. Naveen, you can unmute yourself if you want to talk.
Sir, I posted my question in the chat box. I will also ask here. Most of the aspiring entrepreneurs come from middle class family when they want to dream big but can't afford to fail many times. What are the approaches available in our country to execute their ideas?
The tricky question. Fundamentally, tell me one successful startup entrepreneur you heard about very recently, or at least in the last 4-5 years, who's not come from a middle class family.
That's what, sir. I'm asking. How are they executing their ideas? We can't know the stories of their journey.
Because they have that passion and they're willing to take that risk. So, I mean, you name the Bansals on Flipkart or any of the other startups like Zomato or Swiggy or Ola, all of them come from normal middle class backgrounds, isn't it? Nobody is come from a wealthy class and started a company and become a unicorn. Right? So to that extent, being in middle class or having low means of finances doesn't mean somebody cannot dream big or cannot take risks or will not be able to push further and get their startup idea get their startup idea wings to fly. Right, so that has no connection. Now, if someone is coming and telling that I want someone else to own my dream and take all the risk, then we need to figure out how viable or how serious are these people. Will they stick to it? So which means if I'm asked to sign a 1 lakh check and the founder has not even spent 10,000 from their pocket, do you think I'll have confidence to sign the lakh?
No, sir.
I will not.
Right.
So I want to see what is it that this startup founders or the co-founders have risked by incorporating a company. Doesn't mean they've taken any risk. Or in the previous question which Abhimanyu was asking, if there is an entitlement thinking that I already declared that I'm a startup founder, then everybody else around me should risk on my behalf. I don't think that's a workable proposition, isn't it?
Yes.
And there is government, there are education institutions like such as Andhra University or all the colleges that each one of you represent here, who are willing to give their infrastructure, lab facilities, and equipment, etc., to create that product And also there are certain government grants and other grants. I'm sure someone else will speak later on in the sessions, which are willing to fund that prototype development or product development efforts. But taking it to the market, putting it in the market, and getting their customer validation sorted is all, hard work. And that's what in my product solution fit also, there was one slide which said, if you don't get 5 paying customers for your minimum viable product, then there is no game. Right? So getting those 12 customers to accept that if their problem is solved, they're willing to pay. And those first 5 trial customers who are actually paying, it may not be the full cost, but at least some money, right? Just to keep myself occupied, just to keep my engine moving. Now that's what it is. And there's nothing to do with their backgrounds. There's nothing to do with their low means, and there's nothing else to do with that entitlement in my mind, Naveen.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
So if the product is good, if the solution is right, and if there are few validations from certain people, and there are other customers who are willing to buy, then why do you need all the money? For prototype development, for the product development, there are few grants and funds that are available. But even there, one needs to be able to convince, the grantee of putting that money and that unique solution, and then there's a lot of parameters there itself. So it's not easy to even get such grants, but there are grants. Yeah, I think Abhimanyu put some names there. I'm sure there are multiple of them. Any other questions? Madam Chandra, what is the time? How are you doing on it?
We still have 1 hour more left, sir. I think Abhimanyu has one more question.
So when is lunchtime in Visakhapatnam, Chandra?
Sorry, sir, but it was for us 1:45.
So Abhimanyu, you have a question.
So my question is based upon the Founder movie. It is based upon McDonald's. So there was a business which was selling burgers. The business himself does not knew that it was selling the fast food products at a very paceable pace. A person comes to their restaurant. He sees something is new happening. If he can commercialize that particular aspect at a larger scale, they can reap a larger amount of profits. My question over here is, there's a particular idea out in the market. The owner does not know himself. A third party comes in and want to commercialize it. How it could be done in a ethical way? What are how it can be commercialized?
So it's like this, right? There is a founder and a solution fitment that happened. There's also a product and a solution fitment that happened because the people in that particular geography of the market were already buying from that particular burger company. Now there is this another investor or another shark or a big fish which has come and felt that it need not have to stay in that same geography, but it can actually scale across America and or probably globally as well. And that's the dream that the second person had in the case of McDonald's, and came and of course the manner in which this story was told or narrated to us maybe or maybe felt that this new investor had actually taken over hostile takeover from the existing player, but the existing player had only that kind of limitation, was never scaling. And there are umpteen such examples in the market, right? So if there is a company which is only grown in that particular geography, and if it can scale to other locations or expand globally, it needs a bigger player, and that's part of our mythological stories also in India, right? There's a big fish that always eats a small fish, and the fish grows, and that's a what is it? Matsya Nyaya in Hindu mythological terms, but that's the way it is. The fittest always survives.
So, can we put it as a way of seeing the potential of the innovation?
That's exactly what the investors do, isn't it? If someone sees a potential in a business and then puts in money on it, and then some of these investments are also enable these investors to sit on the board and take a few decisions which are which may not be the same thing which the founders originally thought, and therefore it again pivots or uh, changes or transforms into something else, and transformations keep happening all the time. If the business is not transforming according to the market demands or according to the changes that are happening around in the market, then they will never last long. So they will die very soon. If McDonald's were not to be the same McDonald's, but just that one small town burger company, the whole world wouldn't have seen the value of what products and services they offer and the experience that they deliver. And similarly, those investors and company, wouldn't have seen the value of growing and making so much of profits in the long run.
Okay, sir. Sir,
It's a natural growth.
I have one more query. It is in relation to exit and non-exiting the startup. So, when we see when the Facebook was made by Mark Zuckerberg or any other person, which is a controversy. So, at a particular peak, a founder makes a startup, puts in 200% of efforts. He reaches a peak where he feels he cannot. Thereafter, no efforts are put in by the founder. He seeks to exit the company. How you see it as a going concern concept? What are your take on this? Whether the founder should exit or not exit? How he should take it further?
So, Abhimanyu, I would like I would ask of you to actually park this question for the next session. I was just seeing the calendar. I think the session in the afternoon is all about funding, investments, exits, etc. I think just park it for the next speaker to come in and be able to take that, or maybe they would be covering these examples while they present.
Okay, sir.
Okay.
Thanks, sir.
So yeah, thank you for that. And I see Ramesh Bhushan.
He has
Have
one more question, sir. How to become an entrepreneur from humanities, social sciences, and arts background, or from liberal arts in our society?
any background. So who said only engineers become entrepreneurs? I don't think that's anything specific to whether engineers or people from STEM backgrounds, isn't it? So there are multiple problems to be solved in every sphere and space of work, and social entrepreneurship, uh, inclusive technologies, culture related startups, big. I think there's only limited scope for technology products, right? So, for example, if anything is app-based or technology-based, it requires of the user or the customer to have a smartphone or access to internet, and that's only uh, a minority portion of the total population of India. For example, if it is India as an example we take, or even globally. So there are a lot of enterprises and startups and solutions that are solving problems for I mean, communities such as artisans, communities such as people who are doing craft, people who are working on social problems and impact solutions. So there's so much work happening there, Mr. Ramesh Bhushan. It's not limited to technology and STEM area in that sense. So because of the way in which our academic institutions are skewed in terms of number of students studying STEM, uh, doesn't define the number of startups or the number of problems that exist in the whole world, right? So we may not really have to think that humanities, social sciences, arts, and liberal arts is a limitation in any sense. Uh, because art tech is a huge uh, and well invested problem. Anything that we can define using art and creativity to convert it into so uh, uh, there are solutions which take say my photograph and give it in a say Picasso style or a Michelangelo style. So we can choose a real painting that is there and a picture or an image, and then overlay both of them, and that actually requires machine learning and deep technology, deep tech solution, and a heavy computing space, and uh, the computing power to be able to generate these designs which are custom made, and people may want to really buy. So if someone comes and tells me that they'll take a passport size photograph of mine, I would pay probably 100 rupees to it. But if someone comes and says, I will convert your photograph into Mona Lisa or a Picasso styled image, and give you on a canvas, I might even pay a few lakhs of rupees for that. And there are people who are willing to buy such custom developed solutions. So that's only one example I just speaking about. But I'm sure there are so many other problems, so many other problem statements that we can go solve in that space. Ramesh, does it answer for you? In fact, your last line just stopped short of saying, "Is our society ready?" Yes, we are ready. Startup success ratio is the same, 2 to 5% in terms of crossing all those stages and becoming or getting an exit, right? So uh, there are 60,000 plus startups which are listed in Startup India portal, and numbers are being added on a daily basis. Uh, and what it also means is we still have a long time to go and really get into measuring our success ratios. I think it's too soon, too early to say if the startup models are succeeding, not succeeding. Uh, Healthcare and pharma in particular is a flavor of the last 2 years. where we are seeing a lot of solutions coming up from that particular space. It is also to do with the timing and the market demand because of the health pandemic that we all went through. So therefore, there's so much more that is required. But again, unlike now in the previous times, a healthcare and a pharmaceutical startup always needed a long gestation period because there are regulatory and other certification related issues with pharma and the healthcare space, and therefore it takes a long while for research and the translation of commercial translation of a particular solution. So pharma and healthcare is a good space to be in because it touches many human lives, and it's also one of those sectors which never faces any recession, if you will. Right? The sector will be ongoing all the time. Ramesh is shooting question after question. There's another one. As a linguist, which area I can suggest my students to focus? So, so linguist as in, are you researching on language or is it natural? So I don't know which part of linguistics that you're in. There's a lot of NLP and language related problems that are being solved because transliteration is very critical and important for people to communicate, be able to communicate from one geography to another geography, right? So Google is really doing a lot of work there of translating from one language to another language, and many of our technologies also are limited by the applications and apps being in English, and all those might require translation if that is what you are speaking about. If we have to some of those non-English speaking users across the country. So I think there's a huge scope for students to do a lot of research in terms of these conversions. Yes, Abhimanyu.
So this question relates to the failure of startups. So I was thinking, a startup is failing. Now the founders are to introspect where it all went wrong, and during the introspection there might be certain stages where they want to relaunch the startup. So what is your take? How like 100 startups were there, 3 to 5% is the success rate. 95% of the startups, as per your experience, how many of them introspect about their failures, and what is the relaunch rate within them?
So a lot. In fact, uh, while I was explaining that, talking to that slide on 98 to 95% startups fail, uh, I also mentioned that it is just the business model that fails. It is not the entrepreneur as an individual who fails, right? So entrepreneurs, if the chosen, they have chosen to take risk, and they have chosen to create something, and they have chosen to really generate wealth, and they have chosen to generate new employment, and that's something that they're very passionate about, and they have dreams. What fails is not the individual but the model, and which is based on many factors. It is nothing to do with the individual. Like we also discussed, it could be with the timing, it could be with the idea, it could be with the team, it could be with the funding sources, or it could be with any of those, or wrong, poor assumptions and judgment on the market and the customers, etc. So it could be any of those 101 reasons because of which a startup model fails. And if the founder is chosen to be an entrepreneur, uh, they always rebound, right? So that's the resilience every entrepreneur will have. They might fail in the business model chosen, but they quickly pivot, change gears, move, change, probably take up another problem to solve, etc., and then keep moving forward. And hence, entrepreneurs, in my mind, never fail. They keep on trying and they keep on experimenting, and they will have that grit to pursue further. If they're not really completely chosen to be an entrepreneur, they may go back and join other companies, or maybe if financial situations don't permit, they may go back to a paying job or something for a brief while, but they always keep returning back. Once an entrepreneur, always an entrepreneur, and they serially keep experimenting. Uh, Now, there are a few conditions or few situations which even the founders or the entrepreneurs wouldn't have anticipated, uh, like the 2020 health pandemic that happened most recently, or the lockdowns that happened in the country, and some of those business models have just become unviable, or not useful at all, and therefore startups had to reimagine their own business models. They had to reimagine their own customers in the changed world. They had to reimagine their solutions or the problems that they were once solving. And in my own personal experience, 2020, uh, I think during April and May, I was involved with this organization called TI, the Indus Entrepreneurs, and in Hyderabad, in partnership with the Telangana state government and TI and Hyderabad Angels, which is an investor network, angel investment network, and about 13 odd incubators, including the likes of T-Hub and CCMB, AIC, etc. We've all launched a program called Reaching for Hyderabad Startups. We invited many of these startups incubated in these 13 incubators whose businesses have tanked or business models have failed, or uh, the market is changed for their current product or solution, right? So we brought in about 300 odd such companies, and by way of continuous mentoring and series of sessions with small groups of entrepreneurs, by attaching a mentor each of these groups, we allowed the founders to reimagine their business models, pivot or rejig their startup solutions, or even go back and develop something new, uh, choose new set of customers, and go into the market once again. So close to about 80-85 of those 300 plus have even gotten investor. I mean, we presented their renewed rejigged business models to bunch of investors from across the country, and also a lot of customers that are likes of Google and all these corporates, through series of demo days again. So because in the changed new business model, the customers will sign up new orders or start procuring their new solutions, etc. So in the aspect of getting an access to mentorship, access to markets or customers, access to new money or new funding avenues, the whole program starting in I think April or May, it went on till I think September or October. Like it was like a good 5 months or so, through series of interventions and activities, we tried rejigging, some of the business models to change them. And I think over 60 odd investors and more than 40-45 mentors from TI and all these ICA and other HA kind of bodies have participated in this massive exercise. So that's a recent example of telling you that it is possible. It is not individual and one-off, but at a larger scale, as a city as a whole, kind of an approach. We brought a huge change in the startup because a lot of them are even demotivated because things are not moving right. Their supply chains are broken, their inventories are stocked up, piled up, and their customers have stopped giving orders. The payments have been halted. So multiple issues because of these unforeseen lockdowns and unplanned lockdowns and unforeseen health pandemic situation where people have just stopped buying, right? So it just came to a standstill during that time. And many of for their previous business models, the investor term sheets would have gotten cancelled. Some investors who have promised to give them money would have said, since things are not moving, we wish to back out, kind of a thing. So these are all the possibilities. Situation which is outside of the startups' control, and a large portion of startups are going through similar problem. But individually, these are also possible. We can even do a case-to-case basis advice and consulting to figure out whether their business model is strong or whether they have their customer, the market fit is happening, not happening. So all of those. But what is required, Abhimanyu, is that willingness to be trained and coached. If that is not there, there's nothing that anyone can help and do. It's a long answer, but I tried answering, giving you the complete background, which is possible.
Thank you, sir. I hope I'm not wasting your time.
No, I hope I am not yours.
No.
But rest of the people on the call, there's so many of you, at least 80 of them. It looks like only Abhimanyu and I am having a private class.
Sir, my next question is in regard to the landscape. Before COVID, there was a particular landscape of the startups. So we say entrepreneur is someone who sees a crisis as an opportunity. So how does you see the changing landscape after the COVID or during the COVID phase? New health pharma startups coming in, or what is the new landscape that is upcoming?
What did you see? What did you notice? How many unicorns we had prior till 2019, and what happened in 2021?
Sir, in context to healthcare pharmaceuticals only,
Healthcare, there are obviously things, but at the same time, at least if somebody is focusing on just the pandemic and this one as a problem, I think it's a moving goalpost. Because every day there is something new happening and changing that sense. So the ones which are more successful are the likes of Bharat Biotech or any of your other vaccine developers, or some of those pharma manufacturers who had gotten formula from somewhere and started developing. And during those increased hospitalization time, there were many people coming and trying to develop certain concentrators and sanitizers and this and that. So multiple things happened during that time. But again, uh, startup or a business is something that is repeatable and scalable. So whether it is qualified in that context or not is for the founders to assess. So healthcare is a big deal, but healthcare has always been a big deal because it's not just COVID virus, isn't it? There are so many problems to be solved in healthcare and wellness. That's a focus sector which after I think health and wellness, your edutech, uh, your food tech. Once lockdowns are lifted, all of them are growing, isn't it? Every other business where convenience and deliveries are involved, there seems to be a huge demand for those solutions.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Just to
It's
make it a
a
little interesting, let me see if there is a quiz we can do. Thought I did something there. Chandana, are you able to see my screen in presenter mode, or
yes, sir. Able to see,
are
sir.
you seeing quiz?
Yes, sir.
So anyone can answer. Use the chat window for that. I will just try and. So, is entrepreneurship a hit or a miss? Is it risky? If you have an answer, you can type.
So the answer has to be subjective or objective?
So I already pressed the
Okay.
next button. So which one is first? Plan big or act fast. Plan big, plan. Yeah. There's one person who said act fast. Oh, I see the chat window buzzing with answers. Let me give you what is here. So it's actually experiment. Startup is all about experimenting, validating. Things work. So we may have a plan. For example, the business model canvas that I spoke about, right? Uh, the BMC done at the beginning of the journey, and the BMC done when say somebody, a startup is raised Series A funding. The founders themselves will be surprised, if they ever had that original idea, which was so different from what they are doing right now. So it keeps changing and keeps moving all the time. So should a founder go by intuition first and validate afterwards? Go with the intuition, yes. Okay. Actually, in the session that we said, it is the customer feedback that the founder has to listen to. It is not the founder's intuition. It is actually the customer's feedback which drives the product launch and the lead. Always it is the customer first. Right. So this is an important question. Many of our entrepreneurs come to us saying that I want, if you have a feedback about my startup idea, but I want it to be kept very secretive, and I can't share everything with you. I will only share bits and pieces because they're worried that their idea is going to be stolen or plagiarized. Yes, feedback is paramount. So secrecy doesn't matter. The ideas that are, I say that the idea is a commodity. They're dime a dozen. They're available everywhere. It is not the idea that is paramount, but again, I think this is the same question repeating. So it is not the design, it is not the development, it is iteration. Right? Yeah. This is another one which we spoke. It is an incremental launch, listen, loop, and pivot. Launch, listen, loop, pivot. That's a cycle that we spoke about, right? So the moment there is a working prototype which is validated by at least few paying customers, it is good idea to actually launch it in the market. We took the example of Clubhouse. I'm going quickly. I see that the speaker after me is already joined. So it is build, test, iterate, build, test, iterate, and that's the loop. And minimum features, because it is not about having all the features covered in the first one. Okay, product or service in one word. I'm waiting for answers. Which is more important? Or which is the best? Is it right? Technology in one word. So what's technology in one word? So, to a question that was asked, right? Humanities and social sciences and linguistics and art and literature. Irrespective of what is that we choose, the enabler is technology. It is actually, what is going to work for us. And that's important and not to be seen as the other or someone else. Right? So technology is an enabler, and that's what is critical and important, whichever be that field or sphere or solution that is. Because if we need scale or repeatable results without technology as an enabler, how can we achieve it? Even if it is a social enterprise, which is probably going to do some adult education as a program. Now, if there is no technology as an enabler at the core of it, it can never be scaled. It will still remain in the same geography or that one community that we're doing, and that's all. So, how do we really take it to the world? Okay, there's so many more. I'll stop here. So I'm done, and thanks for your questions and all the active participation and interaction in the chat for all these questions. From my side, I now good to hand it back to Chandana. Over to you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much for taking your valuable time to take up 2 sessions continuously. I know it is not an easy task to speak for 2 sessions. Thank you very much, sir. And thank you very much for telling us about what creating a business value is and how to create it. And we got to know how to create a business model and a business plan. And thank you for introducing us about the concepts like servicitizing, product market fit, and problem solution fit. And we got to learn about many more things of how pricing is being done actually in various companies with the illustrations you gave. Thank you very much for elaborating the things with the examples here. And I think this is the session which got QA for the most time, which is about some 40 minutes. Thank you very much for patiently answering the queries of all the participants, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Chandra. Thanks, Ahab. So, are you opening videos for your group photograph or not?
We didn't do that till now, sir, but it will be a great thing if we can have that.
Yeah, just ask everybody to start their camera so that you can take a screenshot.
Sure, sir. Participant, could you please turn on your cameras for a while so that we can have a group photo?
So, Chandana, should we show a letter A like in Ahab?
So you are the leader for the session, you can say, sir.
So let's give a symbol for representing Ahab probably or AU. So everyone in the room who started their video can do this, so that we'll just take the picture of A, so that we can thank AU and give it back to Ravi garu. Chandra, I hope you are taking the screenshot.
Yes, sir, we are taking.
Thank you. You can tell us when we can put our fingers down.
Yeah, you can close it, sir. Thank you very much, sir.
Thanks so much. It was nice interacting with everyone, and happy to see you on the other side soon. Bye bye.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, participants, for being with us here patiently. And the next session will be starting at 2:30 p.m. Looking forward to see you there.